The deluxe version of my album is out now, and here's your official warning that if you want to see me, Noahfinnce, play a show in the UK in the year of 2025, the only chance you get to do that is at Slam Dunk Festival. End of May, you should grab a ticket or else. I've got some merch, and I have a Patreon too, and I have a Discord too if you want to make friends, because I know you have none.
Hello, underachievers! Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit spicy, a little bit controversial. Probably not, to be honest. I don't know how tame these are going to be, but I've read some of them and they're not so tame. Today, we're going to be talking about you specifically right there, your LGBT hot takes. If you're part of the LGBT community, drop the letter of which applies to you in the comments. If you're a lesbian, L. And from there on. So I asked you guys for your hot takes anonymously. So whatever is said in this video, I'm gonna read it out, and if it doesn't represent what I feel, I'll let you know about it. So let's start off. First off, we have "Call Me By Your Name?" ? Yeah. Cool. Great hot take. I mean, I assume you're talking about the fact that, like, Timothée Chalamet's character is supposed to be, like, 14 or something? Or 16 or something, sleeping with whatever the guy who eats humans, what's his name? Mr. Army Hammer. Arm-eating Hammer. Yeah, I mean, it is weird to write this whole thing about a teenage boy sleeping with a grown-ass man. But my defense, personally, is that Timothée Chalamet looks really hot in it, and he's an adult, so, like, I kind of watch it anyway.
Sorry.
I feel like, absolutely, when people complain about it being weird and gross, it absolutely is weird and gross. But if you're just looking at the actors, I'm all for it. I just need more Timothée Chalamet. I feel like the Saltburn drain is like the equivalent of the "Call Me By Your Name" peach.
You think that's the same? Sorry, this is not my video.
It's my opinion! Yeah, because it's actually, no, it's definitely not the same. I would much rather a peach than lick up somebody else's from Bath. Anyway, next hot take. From a cis guy that's dated trans plus cis guys. Trans guys are always more respectful and understanding of boundaries and just generally nicer people. I would like to say yes, but I don't know if I would like to say yes. I know some very angry trans men. Some very toxic ones. We're looking at you, the offensive You know what, I kind of understand it, like, based on context. It's probably like, a trans person has probably gone through a lot of stuff, so they're maybe more empathetic to other people going through stuff, maybe more aware of things that may be uncomfortable in terms of, like, body and, like, self-image. So in that way, yeah, sure, that makes sense. I don't know, I don't know if I like going down the whole, like, oh, trans boys are just so much sweeter than cis ones, because it just feels kind of a little bit on the edge. I understand that's not at all what you're saying. But yeah, okay, not too much of a hot take. Guys, with all the love in the world, saying trans people deserve rights, to me, for a hot take video is not much of a hot take. My opinion, trans men, not to be confused with trans mask, cannot be lesbian. I've seen videos of it and it makes zero sense, to be honest. I guess my hot take is that I don't give a shit if a trans man calls himself a lesbian. Doesn't make me feel any worse about myself, doesn't affect me at all. I understand the confusion, obviously, if somebody's a trans man, they've transitioned into a new gender that they identify with, and usually, like, lesbians can't be men. But I feel like a lot of the time with this conversation, people don't really look at the context behind why people are doing that. And I'm not a trans man lesbian, obviously. I couldn't be if I tried. I like men too much. What I will say, without speaking for them, is that a lot of the time I've seen people that are trans men that identify as lesbians, it's because they've grown up in the lesbian community, that's where they found their community, that's their identity, and if they transition to men and they still want to call themselves lesbians, like, I'm not upset about it. I can imagine lesbians being upset about it. My opinion 10 years ago for this would be absolutely, like, I agree with you. I feel like nowadays, or maybe I've just actually updated my programming and I understand it a bit more. I think trying to create these, like, very rigid boundaries doesn't do anybody any favors, and I understand how it seems like lesbian and man are, like, opposite ends of the spectrum. But if a trans man is with lesbians in a lesbian community, used to identify as a lesbian, fair enough. Your hot take is that being publicly out and wearing pride flags, badges and stuff is kind of rubbing it in people's faces. Like, why not just not tell anyone? There's no gain for being out publicly. Only a few mates of mine know I'm trans, and I'll keep it that way. I don't get why people open themselves up to hate. You're the exact type of... No, that's so mean. I feel like you're kind of closer to the type of... the trans guys that I was referencing earlier. And without sounding like that, it's just kind of victim blamey. I don't think if you leave the house and you have a pronoun badge or a pronoun pin and you get smacked in the face that it was your fault, which is kind of, if we follow this logic, that's where we're going to. I also felt like this when I just came out. I was like, I'm not proud of being trans. And to be honest, I'm That's still an interesting line for me. I think this is kind of just saying that it's trans people's fault for people being transphobic. If people want to go outside wearing pins and badges, good luck to them, because that's brave, especially nowadays. But no, I completely disagree with this. This is like a weird take for me, because like, when I go outside now and people recognize me from the internet, they know I'm trans, so I could never be stealth if I wanted to. But I also feel like being stealth is a choice, and also not being stealth is a choice, and I feel like just insinuating that everybody should be stealth because that's how you feel is a harmful one. People aren't doing any harm by being themselves and being loud about it. Sure, people find it annoying, but I'm sure people find you annoying too. And that's okay.
Oh. Okay.
Next up, we have, there's way too much gatekeeping within the community of how to be LGBT. Well, obviously, this is not going to take long to answer. I feel like the last hot take was proof of that. Next one is, I don't understand neo-pronouns. Of course, I'll still use and respect anyone who uses them, just not an experience I can relate to. Understanding's not the point, I know. Well, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. You don't understand neo-pronouns. When you say you don't understand neo-pronouns, do you mean like you've read the definition and you still don't get it? I mean, like, I don't personally understand neo-pronouns myself, as in I don't understand wanting to use pronouns outside of he, him, but that's just for me. If other people want to use them, go for it. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. Asexuality does not inherently need to be grouped in with being queer the same way hypersexuality is. Levels of sexual attraction exist on a spectrum, so either include both extremes or neither extreme. I feel like this is kind of part of the gatekeepy thing. I mean, I remember like when people were just like, no, it's just LGBT, none of this plus, none of this other bullshit. And I think it only does more harm to like keep people out of the queer community than just by letting them exist there. Because like I feel like a lot of asexual people have similar experiences to other people in the LGBT community. I assume a lot of people that are asexual, based on what I've heard, is like they grow up feeling like there's something wrong with them, which mirrors a lot of stuff that the rest of the LGBT community grows up with. I understand where this is coming from, because like obviously if you're straight, not at all queer in regards to like your sexuality, if you're cis and you're asexual, you're gonna be nothing like a pansexual trans woman. But like, I don't think it does anybody any favors kicking anybody out of the community. If people find community within the LGBT space, then who are you or who am I to tell them that they don't belong? There are many, not a majority, but a very loud minority of people within the queer community who give us a terrible name. And there are a bunch who are creeps. That still doesn't really make it make sense to misgender them. I mean, this goes for literally any community. I'm sure in the furry community, there's also an equal amount of people that are not nice or perhaps creepy. This is kind of following in from like the first, I think, hot take that we had where the person was just like, yeah, like trans men are way nicer. I don't think being LGBT excludes you from harmful behaviors. We're all humans. Just some of us are just queer. I think what gives LGBT people a bad name is transphobic and homophobic people like weaponizing and like uplifting, I guess, like platforming LGBT people that are maybe not the best people. We're speaking about Blair White. I think conservatives will latch on to any trans person that's done anything wrong ever and make it seem as if the entire LGBT community is like that, which is just not the case. And I get it. I still have thoughts sometimes when I see like a trans person do something real stupid or say a real stupid thing and then everybody goes off about it. But I don't look at them and think they give the entire LGBT community a bad name. I think if you're seeing like one bad LGBT person doing something and your immediate assumption is that the rest of them are like that, then that's a you problem. This one is a hot take. People trying to not class being transgender in the terms of gender dysphoria as a medical condition has made it easier for our rights to be taken away because transitioning isn't being looked at as a treatment in the eyes of the law, but rather something optional. I can understand this. I do understand this. There are obviously some trans people that have no desire to even transition, and that doesn't even have to be like medically. There are some trans people that do want to transition, some that don't, some that want to go on hormones, some that want to get medical treatment for their gender dysphoria. And I think there should always be that option. Obviously, somebody that wants to transition, somebody that doesn't, they have very different experiences. I just don't want to be the person that says it's the fault of people that don't need to use those services that is creating this problem. I think it's more just like transphobia in general, where the government will do whatever they can to make our lives harder. But yeah, it's a hard one, because like, for me at least, the way I experience being trans, it is, wow, it's difficult. I don't think being trans itself is a medical condition. I think the gender dysphoria and the gender incongruence is the medical condition. Like, being trans is just like an identity, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely a tricky one with that. I think as long as we're keeping up the conversation that like, transitioning medically is life-saving treatment for trans people, then that is the big important one. Hot take, I believe anybody can date their same sex if they find the right person. I mean, yes and no. I kind of like, when I was growing up, I was very, very rigid about my identity for lots of reasons, majority of them being gender dysphoria and, you know, not being comfortable identifying any other way. But when I was growing up, I identified as a gay trans man, which meant I was only into dudes. And it also at that time meant that I wasn't into trans dudes because I had a lot of like internalized transphobia and like dysphoria surrounding like female body parts. So at that time, the idea of me ever falling in love with anybody that wasn't a cis guy was completely impossible. But like, you know, as I've gotten older, not to say that this is something that you grow out of, but as I've gotten more comfortable, I've understood that my sexuality isn't as concrete as that. But I don't want to say like everybody can be gay, because even though I kind of do believe that a little bit. I think the finding of like the Kinsey scale stuff was just that like 80% of people could be classed as bisexual, but that doesn't mean that they're willing to like actually pursue the same sex or an opposite sex. But I think a lot of the reason behind that not being generally accepted is just the way that we've all been brought up and taught about sexuality, as in like there is gay, there is bi, and there is straight. I think in a few hundred years, without all of that, I think a lot more people would agree with that hot take. Neopronouns mock trans and non-binary people. I think people use neopronouns to mock trans and non-binary people. I don't think people wanting to have neopronouns themselves are mocking trans and non-binary people. I understand why you're saying that, because you think it's weird and it confuses you, so you don't like it, but I don't think that means it's inherently mocking.
Why do people care?
Mitch, this is
Why
what...
do people care about this?
All these hot takes are just like, I don't give a This one says bi people should only be allowed to say got instead of the full F slur. The slur discourse.
Oh, I cannot stand it.
I know this is a joke, but my hot take is that no, bisexuals can absolutely use the slur.
Queen.
They can say
Queen.
They can say
Queen.
They can say
Queen.
Homophobes on the street are not going to see two men holding hands and kissing a little bit, you know, maybe a little bit of touch. Why did I say that? A homophobe is not going to see two grown-ass men holding hands, kissing each other, and think, oh, let me just check if they're bisexual before I call them a
queen.
There's not been a single scenario, I can't say that for a fact. My hypothesis is there has not been a single scenario where a homophobe has seen like two women in love, two men in love, and gone up and asked them, are you bisexual, before I call you the wrong slur. And like, I am a man. I've been in a relationship with a man for 7 years. I experienced homophobia because of that. Gatekeeping these slurs is insane. But I know you're joking. I just wanted to say my piece. What?
What grows on a
Queen.
tree? Fruits.
Thank you. Little collab there with Corey. This one just says, white cis men scare me as a trans person. I understand that completely. Gay cis men take up so many queer spaces and often excuse their misogyny with their queerness. Absolutely. The amount of that like cis gays say about like women and lesbians and the way they talk about their bodies, yeah, is gross. I think that's definitely more of like a man thing than it is a gay man thing, but I also feel like being gay is obviously part of it. I mean, go to a gay nightclub in London. It is interesting. From experience, gay men can be very biphobic and assume you're just gay. I mean, that's a thing that happens, yeah. I don't know. We don't need labels, we should just date who we want without having to give a name for it. I understand the sentiment behind that. I just think realistically in the world that we live in today, we kind of do need some labels. I mean, to be fair, you could just ask, you sleep with men? But I think some labels are necessary, especially like being trans, obviously. It might be confusing to just, you know, go on hormones otherwise. Logically, the order of the letters in LGBTQ+ doesn't matter, but it kind of does. LGBT, GLBT, LGBT, BGLT. No, I think LGBT feels nicer in the mouth, so I'm gonna have to agree with that. It's weird how gay men only recently got our own flag and how there's no visibility, days/weeks, etc., and nobody talks about it. I feel like historically a lot of people just associate Pride Month with gay men. I don't know who created the flag. I don't know who you need to call up to complain about. I mean, I can't really say anything about the flag because if I'm being honest, I do not give a single about the flags. Like, the trans flag is pretty. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you guys think? Trans kids can start testosterone as early as they want. That is a hot take. I don't think so. I think that obviously needs to be a specific age to it. I don't want to be the guy that's just like, maybe it's a phase, because that's definitely not the rhetoric that we do on this page. But there are, you know, when you're a kid, there are a lot of things to explore. I think any age is kind of insane. 10-year-old boys are not going through puberty like that. Sexuality/identity is influenced by experiences, not just being born this way. I think I'm gonna say no just because I think it can be both. I don't think it's just experiences though. Okay, yes, hot take. When cis people apologize too hard for misgendering you, it does more harm than good. Absolutely. There's nothing more embarrassing, infuriating, awkward, cringy as like somebody getting your pronouns wrong and then you just being like, oh, it's he, and they're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I can't believe I did that. Really? I'm an ally, and like obviously like you look so much like a man, and like I see you as a man, and like I can't believe I just did that, and like really bad, I'm so sorry. It's so uncomfortable because it's really not a big deal, and a lot of the time the people making it a big deal are the people that are misgendering people rather than the actual trans people. There's absolutely nothing you can do in that situation to make it less awkward. Pride Month is useless. Pride parades are great, but most of the ones I've been to weren't even in June. I feel like the month itself is just an excuse for rainbow capitalism. Brighton Pride's in August, London Pride's maybe in June, Trans Pride's in July. But I don't think Pride parades have to be in the month of June. I don't think they're useless. I think like bringing the community together is very important. Obviously Pride parades started as a protest and they still should continue being that, no matter how much rainbow capitalism there are and like banks saying that we care about you 1 month every year. Like I understand the point of rainbow capitalism being bad because I absolutely agree, but I don't think that means that the whole of Pride Month and every single Pride parade is bad. It's way more important for it to be bringing people together, and like there are resources given out of Pride. For a lot of trans people, there's really not a lot of resources about how the they're supposed to start hormones, and there are a lot of pop-ups at Pride, there are a lot of, you know, people that will help you out with those kind of resources, so like it's definitely not pointless. Well, that's the end of the video then. What's your hot take? Do you have a specifically spicy one? If you comment in the comments, it won't be anonymous, so be wary. Have a good day, don't see you later, losers. Goodbye. That's too much thought. I'm not doing that. How long have we been filming? The gays, they all go to heaven, and I don't want to be homophobic. Cut it there. I was thinking about demon twinks, and I just don't wanna open that.